Omniverse.
The Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program contains content that may not be suitable for all ages. Listener discretion is advised. Visit CthulhuMystery.com and head to Patreon.com/OmniverseMedia to join our community of fans and unlock further secrets.
Cap, you're sitting in the studio. Your headphones on your head, your microphone in front of you. Around you are dangling red curtains, black foam, Ninja Turtles, and comic books as far as the eye can see. What do you do next, Cap?
Well, I am going to introduce our incredible hosts. Starting with myself. Hi, I'm Cat Blackard, the showrunner for the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program, and this is the Call of Cthulhu Q&A. I'm joined by an assortment of the cast and crew from this second series that we've done, The Terrible Secret of Lot X, and you all fine folks out there listening to our strange shows have written in questions, and by gum, we're gonna answer them. So, first I'll introduce the host of our show. It's not me. Asking all of the hard questions is none other than our sound designer, Colin Peterson.
Hey, here I am with the questions to ask you. Who is to your left, Cap?
Good question. To my left is none other than the voice of Anjana Ramakrishnan, Melody Perera.
Woohoo! That's me.
And then Kenneth Roger, a.k.a. Boar.
I did not bring any chicken to the studio today, but, I brought myself, and I'm ready to answer some questions, so let's do it.
And then, of course, our keeper, Luke Stram.
Hey, everybody. It's me. You probably have heard plenty of my voice by now.
Sick of him. And last but definitely not least, Oswald Sinclair, Hobo King, a.k.a. John Laval.
It's pronounced Laval.
And Sinclair, yes. Stuff it up your jumper. Obviously, we have other members of the cast who aren't here, but must be mentioned. The incredible Nikki Holland, who played Cherry Featherbottom, and Joshua LaForge, who played Moses Rubin Cubbenfeld, the Mountain Man author, as well as Ryan and Mike McQuinn, our composers. But I think we have a hearty crew who are more than capable of tackling all of these incredible questions that you've sent in.
We're the only ones sane enough left.
A couple of notes going into this. I can tell you the most frequent question we've got is, when is Series 3 coming? Well, let me tackle that right off the bat. We'd intended for it to be out in 2019. Obviously, that's not the case. But what we've done instead is made a lot of changes and big moves within our lives to better facilitate a bright future for the dark deeds of Mystery Program. We'll be sharing details in this Q&A, and in fact, we've got a bunch of announcements that are tied into the discussions to come. Also, a recent update to Mystery Program happenings. We're surprised and thrilled to say that Lot X won 3 Audioverse Awards. Best Improvised Production, Colin won Best Sound Design, and Luke and I got Best Player Direction. So that is amazing. For those of you who voted, thank you so much. No one would know about this show or what we do if it weren't for you folks taking time out of your day to share it. And that means everything. Now, before we kick this off, I hope this goes without saying, but this Q&A is full of spoilers, so only listen to this if you've listened to Series 1 and 2. All that said, Colin, are you ready to crack open our Cthulhu Clan's Curious Quandaries?
Yeah, let's do this.
There were a lot of questions that were submitted. Are you aware of how many?
I never counted. I sent them to you, but I didn't count them.
There are over 20 questions.
Okay, so we're playing over 20 questions, everyone's favorite game.
Over 20 questions. All right, so the first question comes from Alexander Farley. They write, "Hey folks, I appreciate y'all so much. Both seasons of Call of Cthulhu have been amazing and just unnerving enough. However, I need to know, when will Estelle and Anjana and Moses and Oswald return? I need the queer to come back. As no one died, there are no excuses to not have those cute-ass couples reappear. Also, will we ever get character backstories? Cap, I need yours for sure."
Okay, that's a lot, and I'm very, very glad for that. Thank you so much, Alexander. Yeah, it was a real treat to have such a wealth of queer characterization in here. I knew what I was doing with Estelle and Anjana when I created the principal outlines for the characters, but the Moses and Oswald relationship, whatever it is, beautiful is all I know. I couldn't have anticipated that.
It came entirely out of left field, and I'm still not entirely sure how mutual it is between the characters.
A torrid relationship, I suppose.
I would say it's defined only by its existence and not by words entirely.
As soon as we found out that there were characters who were still alive, we had to do something with them again. It would be wrong for us to not attempt to like play with a bigger world and see, where things go next. So, Alexander, I'm excited to say that all 4 of those characters, Moses, Oswald, Estelle, Anjana, they are all coming back, and we'll be sharing details on that later in this episode. As for Estelle's backstory, we'll get into that a bit. But since there's more stories to come, I think it's best if I keep some of that under my hat for now. That said, buy me a drink sometime and I'll tell you all about it.
Garrier had a question of how much of the show was re-recorded and how much rewriting was involved. It's only looking back that I realized some of the scenes were probably re-recorded. I love how well it enhances the audio drama feel. Luke is often audibly GMing them, and that makes it still feel like a game. The 2 styles are so well blended, I'm curious where the seams are.
Our nefarious plan worked. The seams are all over. It's a jumble. As I recall, this question of what was or wasn't in the actual gameplay is something that came up quite a bit in these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was a real departure, Series 2's production, from what we did in the first series. The first series was almost entirely actual gameplay, then just with sound effects added. And we removed some stuff and we moved some stuff around, but we never recorded anything extra aside from the announcer bits. And this is very different. So it's hard for me to put a percentage on it. The first episode was very different from how we started, and that's probably something that's going to be a universal truth of all of our programs, is starting and stopping the actual game is rocky and bumpy and messy, and to make it feel like a good slice of audio fiction, then I'm going to come in and do the things that need to be done and write the scenes differently.
I'd say that's kind of the biggest area where things are different is the intro and the end of the game, just to kind of like make it smoother and add some extra information and things like that.
As an example, the final episode, episode 10 of Lot X, is 97% scripted. There were 2 moments of like post-game, we're wrapping things up, Oswald's complaining about his leg, that actually happened, and everything else was completely scripted. The beginning was in a totally different sequence. Estelle never went to the White Lightning House. It didn't even exist. But I wanted to establish Kenneth and Cherry before they just showed up.
Do you want to go through like a timeline? Because Mjolnir and Hoodoo Voodoo also have questions basically revolving around the production schedule, how things worked out, like taking it from an inception to completion.
Yeah, I realized that this is such a big project that we've already gotten in the weeds pretty deeply with explaining any of this. We first recorded the series in August and September 2017, Series 2 specifically, and intended to release it early 2018, but that didn't happen. Things got a little crazy with life, and we didn't realize how complicated things were going to be. And of course, we ended up starting release of it in October 2018. So the way it generally works is we do the recording, and I do some degree of coordination with Luke. If I'm a player in the show, I try to keep as distant from the plot as possible, but just to make sure that we have sort of a sense of like what kind of a program we're intending to make.
The general story beats, yeah.
Yeah.
Without any of the details of it, because it's always fun to be surprised.
It's integral to be surprised.
Yeah.
And then we kick it over to Colin for principal editing.
It was 12 hours of content, but it was cut down to 5 hours and 45 minutes. There was a lot of discussion that I cut out, just extraneous stuff that wasn't necessary. Because the way that we do it is I'll separate it into scenes, and then Cap takes it away and then came back with this crazy script, and I was like, what are we doing? And because I thought it was going to be the way that the first season was going to run, with it being relatively the same-ish, but it ended up being this thing where I was even texting Cap, and I was like, "Are you sure you want to do it like this? This seems like double the amount of work where we're editing down what was already recorded and then completely re-recording some aspects of it. That just seems bonkers."
Colin, I'm so very glad at how well you were able to. I mean, you're an incredible sound designer, but like you rolled with the punches that I sent admirably. At that point in the phase, the re-scripting phase, basically Colin gives me the scenes and I listen to them. I do another trim of them, resequence things sometimes, make them happen in different places where they wouldn't have happened, and start writing a script where I'll just like inject pieces of silence and start writing what fills in the blanks. Or there'll be like a line that needed to be re-recorded because it needed a different context or was going to lead into a different scene. And I'd make sure that we had sort of the glue. So it would never be 100% clear where things cut from one recording to another. If you listen really closely, if you like really scrutinize the fidelity of things, you can hear the difference between us recording a solo voice and us having like the slight echo of a bunch of mics in a room. Things that changed, for example, I wanted to make sure the pacing was tight. So instead of going from, all right, everyone's gathered together, we're going to go investigate this mysterious lot, the first thing that happened was we went to Miskatonic University, which is a kind of slow, meandering thing that happened. It was very important because we read the damn Necronomicon. That's a big deal. But it also wasn't very exciting. So instead, in the final version, obviously, we follow Moses and Oswald and Anna.
Which is the best 3 in the whole thing. So you wanted to start strong.
Yeah, exactly.
Make people fall in love with the product. Yeah.
And then we realized that Professor Armitage is an established Lovecraft character, and we needed to have a strong voice in there. So I started looking for recommendations for people. And Travis Van Groff from Liberty and the White Vault recommended Graham Rowett, who's a Broadway actor and has an incredible, very deep range. So
yeah, that was pretty good. Spectacular.
I really want Professor Armitage to come back someday in one of the shows.
I was like, wow, it's too bad this isn't a visual live action thing.
He does not look like that voice sounds. So
no, but I mean in general that it just felt it felt like you were watching a movie and you closed your eyes. That's how much gravitas he added to that.
You know, we're always going to be joking around and stuff, but that's what I want the series to, to feel like, for it to be a real audio theater of the mind kind of experience. So at this phase, the scenes are coalescing. We have an idea of where everything's going to flow. Then I kick things over to Ryan and Mike to do the music. And of course, they've worked with me for a really long time. They did music for Dungeons and Doritos and the first series of Call of Cthulhu. We had this huge bank of music that they did for the first series, but there were a bunch of instances where we knew we needed to get specific music or like time music to certain scenes. And that's the thing, that as we were building the show from the ground up and like while we were releasing it, things changed. Like Colin cut out stuff and then I put stuff back in.
Dream sequence.
Yeah. The dream sequence after Estelle's been taken by the Byakhee and sees her quote-unquote mother and all that.
Hey, listen, y'all. So first of all, that like there's some stuff in there that it's just like, what does this end up leading towards? And it ended up leading towards something in the series as we know it now, but in the moment that we were having it, it didn't necessarily lead to anything. Mm-hmm. There was no overall situation with Estelle and her sanity. There were just notes of things. And so, my job was to trim it down to as a cohesive and solid of a story that we could tell with as little of extraneous stuff as possible. And so, yeah, sometimes you do make a mistake.
Colin, I never said it was a mistake.
No. I'm saying sometimes you do get a little
overzealous,
overzealous with the cutting. Mm-hmm. Stuff's got to go.
Stuff does have to
crazy ass dream sequences, some other stuff that just didn't end up doing anything. Because with an investigation, sometimes you have red herrings. Sometimes you go down leads that are dead.
I tried to find every single one.
Yeah, and you succeeded. Yeah. And also too, like that was one of the main reasons why a lot of that section was cut, was because you guys were doing kind of like thought exercises to get back into character.
That's
after
a very good point.
Being gone for a month. And meanwhile, I had found ways to seamlessly have the end of that previous recording lead into when you guys finally got the ball rolling. So having that stuff in the middle messed with the pacing. But in the ultimate final series, the pacing of having those days to night to night to days really helped create a nice flow for the series that wasn't originally there.
Yeah.
So adding that stuff back in was actually really nice.
That is a really good point, because much like the start of Series 2 to begin with, picking it up again after a month, because we thought we were going to get it all done in a day, and we didn't.
Mistakes were made.
Many stakes were made.
I think everything was fine. I think it turned out fine, but like, you know, it was bumpy. It always starts super bumpy, and we did fuck around quite a bit before we found our footing.
Okay, so real quick, like full disclosure on that. One of the things that was like, I'm a goddamned idiot. I actually did not plan for anybody to go to the Miskatonic University and go check out the Necronomicon, because I mean, well, for one, it's kind of like difficult to get your hands on, but I was like, yeah, whatever, no one's gonna go do that, or if they are, I'll just fob them off. I'm like, oh shit, she's super rich, she's gonna be able to do it, there's no valid way to stop her. Okay, I'll let her put the gun to her head, we're gonna do this.
You fool. So
I'm kind of curious what everyone who was playing the game feels about how things changed up, because I mean, like, you know, y'all recorded it and then I disappeared with it, and then I came back with these scripts. What was that like?
The re-recordings are more difficult for me than doing it live, but also when you do it live, it allows you to expand on, because, you know, in the game we have such a short time frame.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if we have somebody coming in, or, you know, you have to get people back in days. So, you know, it's not like you want to play the game for 4 days or 5 days, and we don't like making, you know, doing a break or anything in between, like, you know, a day or whatever. So anyway, long story short.
That said, Series 2 had about a month between the two separate recordings.
Yeah. And
I had to relearn my accent.
And the chicken recipe.
Well, yeah.
But for me, at least, it was nice to be able to expand on the little moments that Oswald would have that finally got a chance to kind of become a scene that was more of a throwaway line at first.
Do you have an example of that?
No.
Did you listen to any of the episodes and realize that your perception of your own characters change? Or were they enhanced in some way? Or were you surprised with some of the direction that the scripted work took some of the characters?
I didn't feel like it changed that much between when we were recording and after the scripting and everything, because when the scripts were given to us, Cap allowed us to kind of change our own lines in ways that would sound like something we would have said at the time. So I always tried to channel Kenneth and what he was doing, and I think I probably changed probably 80% of them, I would say, didn't I? Because pretty often I was reading those lines and I was like, I don't know if I would say it this way.
Yeah, and then every now and then you'd improv something that would be like off
Better,
the cuff.
yeah.
That was really surprising.
I got it. I like the herbs and spices part, but I already got too much time on my hands.
Oh my God! Yes! Oh my God, yes. Please, bless us with this.
Okay. Yeah, so, even though we were scripted, there was a lot of ourselves still in the scripts.
I mean, I get really self-conscious about that process, actually, because, you know, I'm writing for you, and I spend a lot of time with the audio, so I feel like I know the characters okay, at the very least. But,
Right.
you know, this is a collaborative writing process, and all of you are investing parts of yourselves into these characters, and then I come along and just mash my own, like, thoughts and feelings into them, and then that's, you know, that feels a little dirty, and I want to be sure that that's on the level.
I feel like, though, you're at least a benevolent director, in a sense that, you know, if we... if I say, you know, if you're like, hey, here's the line I wrote you, and I go, yeah, but this feels more right, or I'm just not able, sometimes I'm not able to get the emotion out of it, because when you read something written, granted, yeah, that's a script, and that's how you're supposed to read it. But sometimes it's hard to get that to trigger an emotion in you.
Yeah.
So then you just kind of go, know what? If I'm feeling this way, if I'm angry or confused or scared, this is how it's going to come out of me, and this is how it feels more natural.
Cap, can you walk me through the process of how we found Melody?
Yeah, in fact, I think someone asked a question about this specifically. Yeah, it was Garrier.
Yes.
Garrier said, I remember you were publicly looking for a voice actor a while back. Was that for Anjana? Did Melody Perera play the game with you, or was she brought in later to dub over Anjana's parts? She did a great job either way, and I'm mostly just interested in the development process. So the process was, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go all the way back.
Yeah. So with it,
I was born at a very young age.
basically for Series 2, I had wanted them to kind of make more specific characters. Than
Them
Series
being
1.
the players.
The players. Yeah, with it, because Series 1, it was just like, make whatever ridiculous people you want. They're all going to live at Ma's boarding house, and we're going to start from there. And this one, it was more, one character is going to kind of be the hub by which all the other characters are connected. And so that was Estelle. So Cap got sucked into Estelle's world, and then just that's kind of where Anna came from, is just as an effect of that. And so
No, it's not.
No,
you said, hey, everybody, your characters might die immediately, so be sure to make secondary characters.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you said that.
So why don't you explain that?
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. And then after, can we go around the table, or at least the two players that are here, and see? Did you have an alternate character?
No, I planned on
Oh, yeah,
living.
you did have an alternate character.
Did I?
You did.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after.
Oh, okay.
The dam inspector.
Oh, I totally forgot about the damn.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. Luke, go ahead and answer the
Okay.
question.
Okay. Yeah, but anyways, like, part of the thing is, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know what they're going to do. So I figured have everybody make a spare character just to kind of be someone that's in the wings. And, it didn't have to necessarily be someone they interacted with, just someone that they would know or something like that. And so that's where Anna was kind of like built into that as kind of a part of Estelle and her world. And also, if something happened to Estelle, then Anna could kind of pick up her juicy smashed pieces and run with them.
And in the position I was in, I'd created this backstory that allowed for a character like Anna, but at the same time, there was also the real threat that I couldn't get too cozy with either characters because, there was a point where you're like, look, I just want you to know that Estelle's going to die immediately, or something like that. And I was like, all right, I better be ready to play Anna the whole time. And fortunately, that didn't happen. However, I did the thing that I try to always avoid doing, which is playing two characters at once. But somehow in Dungeons and Doritos and this, and also Pokeballs of Steelix, it happens.
It sounds like you like it.
Yeah, it's tradition.
It might be indicative of a larger character flaw of mine to just keep saying yes to experiences.
Well, I'm glad you already know what that is. We didn't have to have that intervention.
Uh-huh. But and this is a great example of when things got sort of blown up from where they were when we recorded and what they ended up being. I was trying to do Anjana sparingly because I was juggling so much and wasn't sure how we were going to handle it. And then we ended up expanding her role significantly. As it panned out, I knew it would be bad for me to be having conversations with myself. And also, I really wanted to cast appropriately to the role. So then we started the complicated process of finding someone who was Indian, or at least somewhere from the region, and so had a degree of authenticity and could do this, British-esque colonialist sort of accent that was appropriate to the place that she came from, which is Adyar.
I actually tried out for the part, but it sounded a lot like the women in a Monty Python skit. So I think that's why I was rejected.
That you have hit the nail on the head. Yeah. So I put the word out in a couple different places online, and Melody, I'm actually really hard pressed to remember.
Facebook.
Yeah, but where? How?
I think one of your friends shared it on a page for South Asian actors. I think that's where I saw it.
Okay.
And then I reached out.
Yeah, and then by sheer coincidence, you lived in Orlando, which is incredible. And I was like, you got the part, because otherwise it was going to be super complicated.
And the voice is perfect.
And not only that, but you were the most qualified for the role by a mile. There was a handful of other people, and it was an easy choice.
I think personality-wise, you even remind me of my headcanon for the character too. Your personality and presence, even though I literally just met you 10, 15 minutes ago in person.
Well, you've heard her.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right. So just in general, I think that you were essentially meant for this, or throughout time, some sort of strange force has been pulling us all together for a reason that we do not yet know what it is.
Melody, what was your experience like coming into this? Did you have character notes, or did you just come in and just read the script, or?
So, I had no idea what Call of Cthulhu was.
Mhm.
Please don't hate me.
No, be savage. Bring it on. Bring the
I still
hate.
don't.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. It's for dorks. Go ahead.
So, Cap told me about it, and I tried to do some research. Hats off to Cap. She is so great. I just came in, and it was just going on this wild roller coaster ride as I was reading it, and it was so cool.
It's a roller coaster, but a roller coaster without restraints or seatbelts.
Mm-hmm.
I was very self-conscious about the whole thing. This is a big ask. It's a weird show. I was asking you to do so many different things and deal with like all this different sorts of like trauma and intricacies.
I don't know. I think I was able to tap into all the personal stuff because, I'm originally from Sri Lanka, so there was a civil war, so all that stuff was there. And also, again, thank you so much for writing a character of color and a queer person of color in the show. That is amazing. That was the thing that I was like, yep, gotta do it, gotta try and get it. So thank you. But you made it easy to create this character to just expand it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was easy to tap into it. Even the accent, all that stuff was already in me. So.
We recorded, I think, the first 3 episodes in one go. And that naturally had a lot of Anna because we were establishing the world that the show is set in, and Estelle was at the core of that. But after that, I was so impressed with your performance that I wrote way more Anna than I ever intended to. All that stuff was there in the continuity that I extensively and needlessly wrote for the characters before we started recording, but it allowed me to weave in emotional arcs that weren't there before. And Anjana and Estelle's relationship was really at the heart of that. And the evolution of the characters was pretty significant by the end of it, whereas it would have just been, a bunch of people got traumatized a little bit. I mean, if I got you in the room and it was like, it was serviceable and you did what had to be done and, it would get the story done, then we probably wouldn't have added more. But I was like, no, there's a real performance here. There's a chance to bring this character to life and do something really meaningful. And that was all because of you, Melody.
Again, I have to thank you because Anjana is a great character and you got the best out of me. So thank you. It's so great to see that the one character of color is not just, a side person, but has an actual solid role in this whole thing. So thank you.
Mjolnir wanted to know how y'all went about choosing character flaws for your characters.
We should also use this opportunity to tag back to one of the many plot threads that we've already lost because we're not going back and adding story into this particular episode, the secondary characters. So, Bor, your backup character was a dam inspector.
Yeah, I basically threw out a few random ideas to, I think it was the Nerdy Show Lounge, trying to farm out creation of the character.
I mean, you basically just wanted to say damn all the time, right?
Yeah,
that was the joke.
Basically, yeah. And if it ever came up and we ever needed to wall up, realities, he'd be able to save the day because he could put a dam in the situation and contain everything. I had a poll, I believe, and that one won. Like, the most people were trying to get me to play a dam inspector, but at the last minute, I thought that playing a parody of Kenny Rogers sounded funnier. So I threw out...
I think you were right.
He's a parody of Kenny Rogers?
Yeah, go figure. I'm sure not many people connected the dots on that one. Yeah.
So
I get it now.
Who is your secondary character, John?
Oswald. I know.
Who is your primary character?
I know. Dun, dun, dun. Originally, my primary character was going to be a radio host or somebody who worked in a radio. I hadn't figured out if he was the host or not yet because I didn't get far enough in development because that's when I switched. I eventually switched to Oswald, but Oswald was originally the alternate I was coming up with. But he was going to basically have been like receiving radio signals from beyond. And this actually connects to Oswald, who it doesn't entirely come up, but Oswald hears voices in radio waves. So they were actually going to be canonically connected in a way that, like, that's why Oswald was hearing the voices in the radio, is that this radio host was receiving them through his radio station. And so if I ever had to go, well, how come I'm suddenly inserting this random-ass radio engineer or radio host character, they could actually be somehow canonically connected. But that was like my original.
My characters actually were going to have a connection too if I had to switch over.
Yeah.
Because when he made that, barrier between realities, if in fact that came up, it would be, keeping back old gods. So it would be creating a goddamn, essentially. And so they were going to be linked by terrible jokes.
He's got 2 jokes. Yeah.
You know what, Bor? I just realized I hate you. Wow, you guys are getting the scoop.
So back to Mjolnir and the character flaws, though.
For Oswald, his flaws didn't entirely get explored. I tried to expose him several times as being a fraud. As having like a strange backstory, but nobody pushed enough for it to come out entirely. But let's just say that his flaws basically become a plot point. In fact, some of his backstory is like immediately dismissed by other characters because it's so unbelievable in 2. So if you go back to a re-listen in 2, maybe you'll figure out what I mean. So listen to season 2 if you're the kind of person who likes to figure out.
How did you go about choosing those flaws, though? Is there any process there?
Yeah, so I was actually weirdly inspired by The Great Gatsby in the sense that the way that all of the characters and everything going on in The Great Gatsby represent the state of the world at that time. I wanted Oswald to also, in ways, represent America, or the same way that Forrest Gump basically represents America and society at the time that he was moving through. I wanted Oswald to essentially represent that for the 1920s.
That's a good damn answer, John, and I'd be willing to bet a lot deeper than anyone would have anticipated.
Yeah, I know, because Oswald's such a goofy character, but sometimes I feel like humor is the best way to keep people guessing. Like, wait, was that a joke? Or is he serious? And so it's like a double mystery.
I can't remember in the series, did we ever explicitly say what my fear was?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it just in my character sheet?
It was not said, like, Kenneth is afraid of the color yellow, but it was very plain that
Luke, you bastard, you threw it at him.
Well, like, I mean, yeah, there's a big chunk of the King in Yellow in this thing. Like, it's not.
Yeah, so I had
happen.
no idea what anything was going to be going on in the story, like whatsoever.
Yeah, I was wondering about
like,
that.
Luke did not tell me anything beforehand. He just handed me a sheet and was like, "Here's all the different fears you can have." And I went through it, and I was like, "Fear of the color yellow? What the fuck is that? Maybe I can make that funny." So,
yeah,
I got a real aversion of mustard.
Like he can't he can't look when he pees.
That's really funny. Like, even editing it, I didn't know that. Like, I thought that it was just you didn't like the book. Like, for me, that fear, actually, I thought that there was some backstory that we didn't get to explore about you having some prior experience with specifically that play.
No, that was strictly character flaw off of a sheet that Luke handed me.
Interesting.
But yeah, I just kind of randomly picked it. So it just kind of ended up becoming way too central of a thing for my character.
Yeah, when I saw that, like, I had a big smile on my face because, yeah, he didn't know what he was walking into.
I remember that. I picked that, and he just kind of had this shit-eating, like, okay, yeah, you do that. I think, like, the whole last scene was yellow.
Yeah.
Just everywhere.
Yeah. Speaking of the character points, Becky Scott Fairley wanted to know if there were any character points that people didn't get to actually explore.
I'm looking at you, Bor, because that's the biggest one of the whole thing.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I don't know this one.
I had some loftier goals for my character.
You and Nikki both, actually.
Yeah, we were gonna create some sort of a backstory, but it never sort of panned out. It wasn't able to inject it organically or think it out thoroughly.
You were both undercover agents for different organizations.
Yeah, the original idea was that it was going to be sort of a spy versus spy situation where we were both undercover investigating each other for things that we really weren't. And it was supposed to sort of unfold, and we were going to figure that out. Operationally, we were just going to be suspicious of each other and kind of like keep an eye on them and kind of tail them. And that's kind of, I think, how we stumbled into the series.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
But it never came to fruition in any kind of real way, so that was one of the things that we had to undo.
Yeah.
This is my first time hearing that.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like a listener.
Yeah. Cherry was a Secret Service agent. I actually, in my notes of many different like possibilities for follow-ups, like way before we kind of ended up cutting that as a subplot, I actually had like a Cherry Featherbottom Secret Service agent storyline idea.
One of the moments we were trying to kind of set up that didn't ever really happen was we were going to kind of have like one of those scenarios where you have cops that are undercover as buyers and cops that are undercover as dealers kind of trying to arrest each other and figuring out that they're both cops. That was some sort of a thing that we were trying to set up, but it just didn't pan out.
I'll follow you.
I reckon I'll come along.
All right.
You do always end up in the same place as me somehow.
I reckon that's just where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I think being on the same side, like kind of, there wasn't that kind of conflict there to really push it.
Now, I should say, in continuity, that is not a thing. So don't be anticipating.
That is not.
So when you're writing your fanfic, keep in mind that is not canon.
But if you are a patron you can get access to a huge pile of deleted scenes and bloopers from the recording sessions featuring all of us and all of our flubs and all of the weird missteps that we made.
Oh, no.
Melody drops a few F-bombs.
No. Really? Do you? Just you don't have to tell me. Just nod yes or no. She's nodding yes.
You're just gonna have to.
I'm kidding. No, she's not.
You're gonna have to,
kidding.
subscribe on Patreon and find out.
There is some content that is specifically that deleted subplot. In fact, some subplot that I wrote in an early attempt to work it back into the story. When they were alone together while Estelle was in a trance reading the Necronomicon, they have this weird moment of like, well, hey, this is a really shitty situation. Why are you still here? Why are you still here? And they have these different like stare-off roles, and it was me attempting to inject that plot back in, but Colin and I had a conversation of like, you know what? Like, it's going to be more effort to inject this in a meaningful way back into the story, so let's just change it around. And what that ended up being was I added in towards the end, you'll hear a little bit more of like sort of a Kenneth sentiment, not like a romance, but like sentimentalism towards Cherry in kind of an old man sort of way that sort of explains why they're bound at the hip a little bit more than in the scenes. So as another example of shit that was added in, Kenneth and Cherry putting stuff on Estelle's head while she's in a trance, that didn't happen.
Didn't make it into the series?
No, it's in the series.
Oh, good.
It's in the series, but
it's one of my favorite.
I thought I remembered.
It's one of my favorite moments between those characters.
But it was scripted.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember you were there?
Well, we changed it. I remember changing it a little bit.
Yes, you did. You did.
Wait, wasn't there a good joke on that?
Yes, there were many good jokes.
Okay.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but
I don't know if I'd call them good jokes.
They were certainly jokes.
Well, the bad ones Cap wrote.
Speaking of Cat, the Wizard of Retcon wanted to know if you had any specific inspirations or musings in creating Estelle. She is an incredibly compelling and interesting character, and I'm very curious as to how you created her.
that is a long story, my friend, so buckle up.
Yeah, there's a lot to this.
First of all, let me circle back to Mjolnir very quickly because this ties in. He asked about character flaws, and I never talked about Estelle. Estelle's character flaws are my own character flaws enhanced, and that stems from a lot of what happened with Estelle. So I'm going to just give you the story of my life in a nutshell. It was 2017, the year that we did this first recording, and I had been out as a non-binary person for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years at that point, and I had a really profound experience, a legitimately out-of-body experience, that put me in my female form in a visceral way that I could finally understand, a truth that I had been aware of but never experienced in such a way so that I could get over myself and say, like, no, this is a truth you have to embrace. The fact that you can live as male does not mean that that's true or what you should do. You have the power to do more, and you should. And, I mean, truly, like, it was an experience the likes of which I've never had before or since, an unprompted thing that I was not looking for. It found me. No sort of pseudo-spiritual experience or anything like that has ever been something that I've sought out or that I'd experienced, but nonetheless, it happened. So that was in the early summer. And by the time we'd started sort of like, we decided we're going to bring this series back. And Luke wanted me to create like a fulcrum character that could bring all these other characters together. And I was asking myself, just very practically, can I convincingly portray a female character in a way that would not be jarring to the audience where they think that is someone from Monty Python's Flying Circus?
Or Bob's Burgers.
Or Bob's Burgers. Though, I mean, admittedly, I did not know Linda was played by a man for the longest time.
Yeah, they do a good job with it.
So I dabbled a bit in voices and realized that I could sort of do it okay. Good enough to be at least a smoker.
Like a lunch lady voice.
And committed to portraying Estelle. But also, a thing I've been doing throughout my life was not indulging myself in some ways. If something felt too good, I wouldn't necessarily do it. I wouldn't trust it. Not that I shouldn't give into it, but that it was too easy and I should be challenging myself or whatever. There's all kinds of ways to slice it apart, and I'm not really qualified to do that right now. But I have always been fascinated by the occult and magic and rituals, and all those things kind of give me this like tingly sensation of something that feels fundamentally, at the very least, interesting. But I soon came to learn right. And a part of my own nature that I had never invested time into examining. So with Estelle being in the 1920s, I started looking into all the occult and spiritualist philosophies that were flying around at that time period, all the different happenings. I read books by Aleister Crowley. I read Margaret Adler's Drawing Down the Moon, which is an incredible book about witchcraft in America in the 20th century. And I also explored a lot of things that were happening specifically in the 20s, like a belief called theosophy, which is kind of like all of these fundamental principles, all these deities, all these concepts of the metaphysical are in some regard true or capable of being true. They're sort of all interlaced, and it's I'm probably butchering this, but from that specifically came both Estelle and Anna, theosophy and the history of theosophy, which is very fascinating. It was founded by a woman called Madame Blavatsky, who later passed the torch to a woman named Annie Besant, who was a mentor to both Anna and Estelle. Annie Besant was a preacher's daughter and a devout atheist after she was betrothed and was like, you know what? Fuck this. This is not for me. So she left the small town, went to the big city, and started being this pretty aggressive, like, atheist writer who's scandalized London on occasion. Something to that effect. Again, this is all from memory, and it's been a while since I've pored over my notes. She was reading this theosophy pamphlet to, like, review it and cut it down or whatever, but then a voice spoke to her out of nowhere that said, "Are you willing to give up everything in search of the truth?" Which should sound pretty familiar if you've listened to Call of Cthulhu Series 2.
Yep.
So she was like, shit, something has just happened to me, something really profound. I've got to throw myself into this and figure this out. So she went to Adyar, she went to the Theosophical Society, and ended up actually running it and becoming this incredible feminist figure. She was a white woman who was campaigning for Britain to let go of India and was arrested for it, actually. So all these different historical events and all these different players and characters wove into the mix of Estelle, along with my own journey. Estelle's personality and many facets of her are basically me plus my mom and, like, blown out of proportion. The kind of, like, old money kind of way she talks and everything is kind of a part of my mom's psyche. And then my own flaws, like being naive about something, being so naive about Lot X and like diving into it and thinking, this is a good idea. Let me get other people involved. This is a really good idea.
That's Nerdy Show.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Let's bring back Call of Cthulhu. It'll be easy. It'll be great.
And I mean, of course I did this knowing full well I was creating a character who could die, and I was distant from it. I was like, these are just things I'm exploring. This is just an excuse. I have this habit throughout my life of doing what I call weather ballooning, which is I'll just like fly something up to test it out. It's steps to get me where I want to actually be. I'm a different person now, and creating Estelle was a huge facet of me, basically exhuming my true self from a lifetime of excuses and self-dismissal. In creating her, I gave myself permission to explore things I really connect with without feeling self-conscious, like queerness, the divine feminine, the occult, polyamory, being an unabashed gay cat lady. Because it was a character-building exercise, there was a degree of separation that allowed me the freedom to be true to myself and eventually to be my true self.
I feel the same way about Oswald and how I'm an asshole.
Uh-huh.
and how Oswald was a conduit for me to realize that in fact I am truly an asshole.
I don't know if I've answered the question at this point.
You nailed it.
There's a lot to Estelle's backstory and Anna's as well. Not detailed, not hammered out, bullet points at best. But I am the kind of writer where I want to feel as though I have at least a cursory understanding of something before going into it. I needed to know who these characters were before I could play them.
It's like a Hunter S. Thompson kind of thing.
Yeah?
In a way that, like, you know, he threw himself into these...
drugs?
I was going to say dangerous situations to gain an authenticity to write about them. I don't mean, like, in the same way that you are, where essentially Estelle is a conduit for expression. I don't think it was the same way for Hunter S. Thompson. But I'm just saying in a way that, like, real-life experiences can inform your fiction.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and I went more in-depth with Estelle than anything I've ever done before, not just for my own, like, personal background, but, like, for example, Aleister Crowley, the major figure of the occult at that time period. I was like, all right, so Estelle has an opinion on him. What is it? I don't know enough about him. He's like, you know, the great beast, the most evil man in the world, and all these different things. is he really that bad? Does Estelle like him? Does Estelle hate him? So I was trying to like formulate that really critical opinion, not even knowing for sure if I was going to mention him in the show. And when I did mention him in the show, that was in a scene that was added in later anyway.
Good scene, though. Took that jerk down a few pegs.
And actually, there's a historical precedent for that. And in fact, there was a woman that used to be a member of the Golden Dawn, right? Is that what they were called?
The Order of the Golden Dawn.
The Order of the Golden Dawn. And she splintered off and spent the rest of her life basically sacrificing her own karma to hex the shit out of him. So that was totally a thing.
Yeah, which I didn't know about, but it just stands to reason that, of course, he burns bridges with one occult lady. He's going to burn bridges with lots of occult ladies.
Because I was talking to my mom about Call of Cthulhu and some of the characters, and when I brought up Estelle, she was like, oh, is it based on, like, this person? I was like, what are you talking about? And then she told me what to look up, and I looked it up. I was like, holy shit, that's Estelle. So maybe you're just a reincarnation. Or you channeled somebody.
It could happen. I don't know.
Maybe she channeled you then, but now. Oh, that was weird.
Huh.
You know what I mean.
Well, I want to really emphasize the depths that I went to. Aleister Crowley created something called the Gnostic Mass, which is a service for Thelema, which is it's not quite a religion, but the belief structure that follows some of his teachings, essentially. Thelema societies exist all over the world. In fact, there's one here in Orlando. So when I went to a local occult bookstore asking around about Crowley books, one of the people there was like, I was actually just at the local Thelema Society and went to a Gnostic Mass. It was incredible. And I was like, whoa, what? She's like, you should go. And I'm like, I should go. This is going to be important. So I did. And it was a wild experience. I mean, basically what happened is Alistair's like followers said, hey, we'd really love to have some kind of religious service to kind of like bind us together. And he was like, oh, hold on to your butts. I'm in Russia right now. I'm just going to lean back during a Russian Orthodox Catholic Mass, and I'm going to write my own spooky version. Hold on. And that's what it is, but it's actually very nice. It's got this sort of Egyptian mysticism vibe in some of the aesthetics of it. There's like an altar with two columns, like an obelisk, and this is a whole other discussion. I don't want to divert too much, but...
Too late.
Yeah, Estelle is an endless black hole, and I don't mean that like in a bad way. like I just... From my side of things, I know how much work you've put into Estelle, and then, obviously the whole entire, like, massive, like, human journey that this, like, RPG character ended up being for you, like, such a deep thing, like...
Is that daunting for you? I know that's a trap question, but in a way of, like, okay, normally a character's like, here's a character sheet, this guy used to be a carpenter, and now he's investigating weird shit. But to be like, oh, well, my character is a socialite who worships, the occult. And you're like, okay, that sounds simple. But also, I just spent the past, 8 weeks doing field work.
Well, I mean, a lot of, the personal ties to Estelle, I didn't really know about until later.
Sure.
I understand a lot of it kind of came in the aftermath of it, as you were, writing and elaborating on Estelle.
Kind of. It's all over the place. When we did our initial game sessions in 2017, I'd made pieces I connected with, but didn't really know how they fit into me yet. She was a character I was playing, and a voice I was doing, but still a separate notion that became integrated over time. And I guess, just as an audio illustration of how much has changed, here's a clip from the Series 2, Episode 0, where the cast gets introduced. Welcome to the Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program, Series 2. Hi, I'm Cap.
What?
It's weird, right? It's super weird.
I was listening to the D&D Q&A because I was the first but not last editor, and I was like, I don't know who this person is. This is so weird, and it really blew my mind.
It took a while for me to actually implement it, but doing Estelle's voice, showed me that I could have a resting pitch that was different. I really didn't know I was capable of it, so this is a very important program for me. I mean, when I was performing Estelle for the first time, I wasn't like, Estelle is my avatar and this is me and I'm super connected. It's that Estelle was an excuse to explore facets of myself that afterwards I was like, no, that worked and also felt right. And though the character is separate character, I'm not her and she's not me.
Sure.
But
it's not wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, I don't ever want to be a Mary Sue, that's
right.
not... That's,
no, I don't think it came off that way.
But
yeah, Estelle definitely is not a Mary Sue. She has some very, very specific endpoints to the things that she is capable of. And although I am pretty sure if I ever killed Estelle, I would be knifed in the street afterwards.
By whom?
By Estelle.
By Anjana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Oh.
Thanks for looking out for me, Melody.
Of course.
Vengeance
Yeah.
is swift.
Melody shows up at your house. Ding dong. Oh, Melody, what are you doing here? And she's just wearing, she's got 2 knives and a mask.
But since Cap didn't tell you all that beforehand, it would have been tragic if you would have had it in your story, like immediately kill off Estelle. Like since you had us prepare secondary characters, that could have happened.
Like if Estelle died in the parking lot.
Right, exactly.
Buying the
The
lot.
guy with the guy carrying around the heart or whatever.
There was-
he would have been a murderer.
Almost zero chance of that happening. Like, I mean,
Almost
Estelle
0%.
could have gone in some insane route that I hadn't expected. But like, the reason I had everybody make the characters was because there is that early thing of you open this up and there's like missing kid, X marks the spot in the woods, and then oh crap, hey, maybe we can find this kid. The cops didn't find anything. Who knows? Let's check it out. Oh, there's a ghoul here that could easily rip somebody's face off if they weren't prepared.
But from a storytelling standpoint, that
Like,
would have been a really great way to like unite everybody who was left. Like, oh, our friend just got murdered.
Yeah, sure.
So I mean that's a real thing that
And I
could have
accepted
happened.
that. That was, like,
that would have changed everything.
Yeah. With it though, like to know that Estelle was part of that journey in my own lame way, I'm really proud of it. Like to be part. I don't mean like I don't have anything. I didn't do anything, but I mean to be a part of it.
You enabled me.
The gravitas is not lost on you.
Yeah, exactly. Like feel really good to have been a part of it. I adore working with Cap.
Oh, thank you, Luke. I adore working with you. This story, this series is incredible, and I mean, could not exist without you. You're the backbone of it. So
It's almost like playing this made us closer. It's like we've been not like we've been through something, but it's like we've been through something. It's weird.
Oh,
the gravity,
definitely.
right?
Because you have gone through something. I mean, I have that same I love Luke. Like I think Luke's awesome. Like not only is he an awesome storyteller, but I really that was another thing that I really enjoyed playing. I really enjoyed playing with Luke in season 3. It was just like he lets you play, and it's awesome.
He enables a little bit of freeform. It's not like you're doing spot hidden and you failed your spot hidden, so now your eyeballs fall out of your face. You don't spot anything. Luke, how involved were you in the rewrites? Because I know obviously during the game you're very involved, but in the rewrites and all the extra stuff, like how much were you involved in that?
Okay, so nobody plays Dwarf Fortress but me, but so Dwarf Fortress, like the dwarves can occasionally undergo these like insane fits where they just decide, I'm going to take a whalebone and some cheese and craft the finest loot that anyone has ever seen, and they just go insane and lock themselves
the musical
away.
instrument.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter anything. Some crazy insane thing that shouldn't be made out of these other component parts. That's what Cap was. Like she went nuts and like buried herself away with all of these things and crafted this incredible thing. But like I did get pulled in a little, kind of more as like a technical advisor. Like I would do some of the writing for some parts of it, especially kind of laying out a lot of resolution of the McLeonard Pell plot at the end, where some of that was expanded upon.
Yeah, we didn't have a wrap up to that plot line at all when we played the game.
Yeah, because I mean ultimately like he's not essential to the story in the deeper end, the actual danger.
And we just needed to get done.
Yeah, exactly. You guys were talking about finding him, and I'm like, well, if you go down to the river, I hear there's lots of really interesting red herrings there, but they are definitely red herrings.
Is that where I found one of them? I don't remember.
It is not, actually.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
no, that was me who tried to go down that route.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, we got to go to the sewers at night because there's nobody flushing toilets at night.
Yeah, I thought that made sense.
I must have been on a earshot. Otherwise, that probably would have piqued my interest.
Yeah, that was one where I was like, this has already gotten way too long. No, we can't go to the sewers, guys. So I did some of the writing, but mostly it was like his kind of like technical / story advisor, because I knew all of the little intricacies of the story because I wrote this adventure. So it was my brainchild as far as that's concerned. And then I'm the one who actually knows how to play the game. So my understanding on it with that end of things is also the other kind of main component. So yeah.
To use a show running term, you're essentially the lore keeper, not just the gamekeeper.
Yeah, kind of.
But Cap just had to make sure that she wasn't going outside the lore.
Yeah. That'd be pretty accurate.
On the subject of lore, and circling back to Alexander's question in the beginning regarding Estelle, there's a lot that I'd love to explore about Estelle's backstory. And I don't necessarily know when or how that's going to happen, but who knows? We're not even beholden to necessarily doing all RPGs. We could just do short stories on occasion. That's a thing. Is it a thing that will happen? I do not know.
Sistrum is a correspondence society, after all.
That's true. Maybe we'll start a newsletter.
Yeah.
And we should also add that if you would like a Sistrum t-shirt or a Bastet Love is Our Strength, Love is Our Blade t-shirt or a Red Herring Fish Coin t-shirt.
I got one of them.
I definitely did too.
Yeah.
I had to collect one.
I have a little tote bag.
Aww.
And I have a little Bastet Love is Our Strength, Love is Our Blade journal that I draw in. We have a lot of stuff, both apparel and house goods and so on, over on our TeePublic store. Go to nerdyshow.com/TeePublic. You can get over there. And if you subscribe to us on Patreon at $5 or more, you'll get percentages off of your purchase there.
I will say, though, that the fish coin merchandise so far, I've been trying to redeem it everywhere. It has no monetary value that I can find.
Because you need 6 of them to make the mosaic.
That's probably the problem.
It's only worth a sense of achievement.
A sense of an achievement?
Wow, that
I don't
we're
get
really
it.
floundering around on this point.
Brutal.
We're all washed up.
This Q&A turned out being massive. For optimum listenability, we're going to cut it here. Split it in twain. But if you're ready to dive into part 2, it's also out now. And in it, we talk about our favorite parts of Series 2, the intersection of love and horror, secrets of the Arkham Paranormal Research Society, and what's to come with Series 3, Night in Howling House. But before we go, I promised we'd discuss the characters from Lot X and when they'd return. Plus, there are a lot of developments for the future of Cthulhu that I want to be sure that you know about. I'll spill some of it now and the rest in the next episode. As I alluded to, there's been tons going on behind the scenes after Lot X wrapped. All of it building to a future that sees us working on the Call of Cthulhu mystery program full time. As you may know, this series was originally released via our outlet, The Nerdy Show Network, where we've been making podcasts since 2009. But now, Mystery Program is being made by Omniverse. And that's still us. Omniverse is a new company we've launched. It's the name for our production studio, and with its debut, we're shifting our focus almost exclusively to storytelling podcasts. Mystery Program is at the epicenter of our in-house creations. You may ask yourself, how serious are you about this really? Well, I quit my job of 11 years to do this. And then you may ask yourself, oh, shit, how dangerous is that? And my answer to you? Oh, very. It is very dangerous. We're only pulling in enough funding on Patreon to offset some of our essential monthly expenses. So for my personal livelihood, I'm subsisting on Soylent and freelance gigs. So that's patreon.com/Omniverse Media, by the way, just in case you're able to help out on that front. Why take such a big risk? You've shown us that our strange, genre-bending horror stories make a difference. And that's what we want to keep doing. I already got compared to Hunter S. Thompson in this episode, so I might as well quote him. And this is a quote that I live by. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. And to that end, our commitment to the future of Cthulhu is sealed. We've recorded not just Series 3, but also Series 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, we have principal recording for 4 new series in the can. And Series 4, 5, and 6 are all original campaigns by Luke. We've announced this publicly some months back, and you can find a link with more details on this episode's page, but since you're here, here's the headlines. Series 4 sees the return of Estelle and Anjana and features 2 new characters played by Liam Malone of RPG From Scratch and Leyliners, and Sarah Ray Werner, creator and star of one of my favorite audio dramas, Girl in Space. These new characters are both Bureau of Investigation agents, and their latest case collides with Sistrum. Series 5 is a campaign of all new characters, criminals and troublemakers in debt to a mob boss, who are charged with tracking down some fishy gold coming out of Innsmouth. The cast is comprised of myself, Nerdy Show collaborators Luke McDuffie and Xanthi Braxton, and the Tom Waits of hip-hop, storytelling rapper extraordinaire, Astronautilus. And last but definitely not least, Series 6 sees the return of Moses and Oswald, along with 2 new characters played by Flamon's Jared Pope and magician and Epic Podcast co-host Nelson Lugo. It's a tale of tangled pasts and nightmarish prophecies, set not in Arkham, but somewhere even more dangerous, New York City. Also, I should point out that there's a chance that we might swap release order for 5 and 6. There's, quite frankly, still a lot that's to be determined. Why on earth would we record so much when it takes us so long to do this show? Well, In order to hatch big plans, we need to know where we're headed. Obviously, this is a lot of podcasts to make. In part 2 of this Q&A, I will share all the details on how exactly we plan on getting these shows to you. Or you can read ahead on Patreon. And again, if you have the means, please do consider supporting us there. Our patrons provide us essential funding that ensures we're able to keep doing what we do. And if we pull in enough, I can forget these freelance gigs and just do Cthulhu full-time. It won't take much. That's patreon.com/omniversemedia. Now, of course, at the moment of this episode's release, there's a pandemic turning the world upside down. It's, horrible. And so many folks' lives have been thrown into pandemonium. Us here at Omniverse, we're doing okay for the moment. Our plans for post-production on the series, we've had to shuffle things around. But we're figuring it out. And the reason I mention all of this is that we know times are tight. So, as a thank you to our patrons for sticking with us through this hard time, we've done the unthinkable. We've started releasing one of those all-new series of Cthulhu in a completely raw form. That's uncut audio as it was recorded, with outtakes, stumbles, rule checks, and no music or sound effects. None of the audio drama fanfare. It's raw actual play. And it's the series about criminals that I just mentioned. It's tentatively called The Spoils of Innsmouth. So if you've ever wanted to actually see the sausage being made, this is it. And that's for patrons at $5 or more. To make sure that that's a very juicy proposition, right now we've got a special offer for new subscribers or pledge upgrades at $5 and up. We'll send you a cute yet sinister Cthulhu Photognon button as well as a mystery program bookmark. These are physical items to be sent in the mail. So just as a heads up, if you're a current or a new patron, please be sure to update your account settings with a mailing address. And that is not all. We are doing an ongoing Patreon-exclusive Cthulhu podcast. But we've covered a lot here in this episode, so I'm going to share the details on this new show in part 2, which isn't teasing so much as it will make more sense in that context. So this is it. I'll see you over there. Before I go, a special thanks to our Patreon producers, Allison Parent, David Van Pelt, Evan Baumel, Goldarn Rito, Hoodoo Voodoo, Josh King, Patrick Webster, Sean Hutchinson, Shanti Red, Zombie Pops, and our executive Patreon producers, Aaron Ramsey, Jamieson Lalone, Jason O'Keefe, and Marcus Larson. And thanks to you for loving our show so much that you want to go behind the scenes. It means a lot. I'll see you in part 2 of the Lot X Q&A. The Call of Cthulhu Mystery Program is recorded and produced in Central Florida and Nashville, Tennessee, on lands ruthlessly taken from their indigenous people, the Timucua and Seminole and Yuchi, Shawnee, and Cherokee, respectively. To learn more about the First Nations of the land where you live, visit native-land.ca. Omniverse.